morning everyone. Welcome to the session on fundamentals of computers. Yesterday we were discussing about the commonly used input devices. I gave you an activity of how to just to find out how many kinds of device we have under each of these different categories. So today we'll once again revise the keyboard devices as well as the point and draw devices, and we'll continue with the other input devices. So what do you mean by keyboard device? It allows data entry into a computer system by pressing a set of keys labeled, but the keys are generally known as labeled buttons, neatly mounted onto a keyboard computer connected to a computer system. The most popular one is the 101 QWERTY keyboard. We saw how a 101 QWERTY keyboard would look like and what are the labeled buttons we have on this keyboard. And then we just started with the point and draw devices, and we were looking at what are the different kinds of point and draw devices that we can have or we have until now. So before we talk about point and draw devices, you need to understand clearly about graphical user interface, GUI. Yesterday I was telling you the importance of GUI, and if you don't have a graphical user interface, there is no need for any of such devices, because with the help of a keyboard you will be able to operate the computer and you will be able to perform all the tasks related to the computer. But for every user or for a diverse range of users to use the computer, what all kinds of computers we had previously, they wouldn't be applicable to everyone. I mean to say that if in the previous days when we didn't have the keyboard or in the early stages of the keyboard invention, we only had most of the commands through the through commands itself. Most of the operations were only done through commands, where we had to input a command by typing it on the keyboard, and the computer used to understand that command and it used to perform that specific task. Suppose if you had to create a folder in the computer, you had to give a command like mkdir. That would be the command that you type in the keyboard, and the computer will understand that okay, now I have to create a file with whatever name we give. Suppose we give mkdir and folder1 is the file name, the folder name. Then the computer will understand okay, folder1 is the name of my folder and I have to create a new folder. So with mkdir space folder1, if you give in the command line, then the computer will create a folder1 for us. So when I gave you this example, you might be wondering like it would become really difficult if you only have the commands to just operate the computer, or every person who has to interact with the computer, they need to know all the commands. This is the problem that they had. So later on, slowly, when we had the technology changing and we had so many other inventions coming up, Microsoft and all, they came up with a technology or with a concept called graphical user interface. Graphical user interface is nothing but the computers we are using in the present world. This is also actually a graphical user interface where I am able to just change the slides by one button or by just swiping the screen. So these are the advantages that we have. Instead, otherwise, if I didn't have this graphical user interface, how would I be able to change the slides? Just imagine, I have to every time go to the command prompt. In the command prompt, I have to go and type some command that is related to this application. Only then I would be able to change the slide, and it becomes so hectic and it takes in a lot of time for any person to just perform a small operation. So to make tasks easier for people to operate, to make people understand computers very easily, they came up with this concept of graphical user interface. Now we all understood what is this graphical user interface and why did we have to come up with that. Now we have created a graphical user interface, everything is good till now. Then how do you operate such user interfaces? At that time we didn't have these touch screens and all. When they created the graphical user interface, until like 10-15 years or 15-20 years, we didn't have the touch screen technology until then. So all those 15-20 years they manage to, or they work conveniently with the user interfaces with the help of point and draw devices. Okay. So, what do you know about these point and draw devices? They are used to rapidly point and select graphical icons that are present in the graphical user interface. Okay. That is point and draw devices. Now, they are used to create graphical elements on the screen such as lines, curves and freehand shapes. We are able to perform all this along with many other features, but majorly when you talk about point and draw device, you can just mention they are used to create graphical elements on the screen such as lines, curves and freehand shapes. Okay. Next, we have something called, next we will see how many types of point and draw device do we have. The most commonly used point and draw devices are mouse, that we all know, we will be everyday using it in our day to day life. Then we have trackball. You must have not seen trackball, I will show you how it looks like. Joystick, all the gamers who all are watching this video, you might be knowing more than me about joysticks and how you use them. And then we have light pen. Light pen, I will show you the technology, what is it, how is it used. And touch screens. Touch screens and mouse, touch screen, joystick, I need not explain you because you people are even more advanced than me in these technologies. But we will discuss about each and every technology that is here. Okay. And then first we look at a mouse. This is just a basic drawing, so just try to accept this one. Generally, this is how initial days the mouses used to look like. They only used to have two buttons and then it used to be in this kind of a shape. So, what is this mouse used for? It is commonly used in personal computers and workstations. We are using it even today. Okay. And then this is what is known as a trackball. Trackball was used commonly for laptops, notebooks and computers. We will see what a laptop is, notebook is and all, but as of now, just to understand, they are commonly used for laptops, computers. Now, if you see this trackball, what all do you find on this? You have two click buttons and then a ball to be rolled with fingers. There is a ball on top of the top of this device and you have two click buttons. Now, what is happening here? This looks similar to your mouse that we saw in the previous slide, right? It looks very similar to this, but what do we have here in an additional thing that we have is a trackball. This ball is used to move the mouse or the arrow that is pointed and to make your operations conveniently. Previously, with the mouse, you only had to move the whole mouse and you have to move the whole mouse and then based on that operation your pointer used to move. But with trackballs, you only have to use your thumb. Mostly for trackballs, they used to use their thumb finger. With the thumb finger, they used to move or they used to make their operations, and wherever they wanted to point that arrow to be pointed, they would used to take it there, and with these click buttons, they used to select it. That is how trackball was used. So, instead of moving the whole device, they had a trackball feature. If you operated this trackball with your thumb or with whatever it is comfortable, but mostly it was thumb. When you operated with your thumb, it used to change the direction or it used to move the arrow that is present on the graphical user interface. Okay. Next, we have something called joystick. Even these days, we have this kind of a joystick for different kinds of gaming technologies, but the joysticks that we are familiar is the one most of us know, which can be easily carried in your two hands, and it had 4 buttons on this side, 4 buttons on the left side, 4 buttons, right side 4 buttons, and you have two buttons on the front part of your joystick. That is how all your joysticks look like, and it all depends upon the manufacturer who manufactures these joysticks based on their requirements, based on how they wanted it. If you consider Xbox, Microsoft's Xbox, you will find a different kind of a joystick. It's very it's very fat and it's very tall. Whereas when you consider the Sony PlayStation joystick, it is of a different kind. It is nowadays the recent PlayStation joysticks have also evolved into a different model, but previously it was easy to handle, and you just try to find out the picture. I couldn't get it here, but what I want to tell you is, initially joysticks were also with wire. We didn't have wireless joysticks in the starting days. We only used to connect it with a wire like this, and when we connected it, there was an indicator which was showing us that there is power supply, that you are getting a power supply to this joystick, and it's ready to operate. Now first we'll discuss about this model, and then I'll tell you 2-3 different kinds of joysticks. So what is happening here? The joystick has a ball over here, just like your trackball, it also has a ball, and we know what this ball will be used for, because in the trackball, what was it used for? It was used for the movement of your pointer device, whatever is the arrow or whatever it is. For the movement of your pointer device on the screen, you are using this ball, and then it has a socket underneath that ball, and there was a stick. The ball had a extended stick for it. On the top of the stick, you had a click button. Now whenever you are playing some game or anything, joysticks are mostly used for gaming, right? So whenever you are using this joystick for gaming, if you wanted a character to move, you had to move this joystick in whatever direction you wanted that character to move. Based on the direction in which this ball is moving, the character would align himself or herself in that direction, and people used to play games like that. Whenever you wanted to implement an operation on the screen, this click button used to be helpful. Suppose if you wanted to fire, or if you wanted to use a gun in the game, then when you click the button, the character used to fire the gun. That is how this joystick used to look like, and it's commonly used for video games, fight simulators, training simulators, and for controlling industrial robots. Even for controlling industrial robots, they used to use such joysticks. So initially we had joysticks that were connected with wire. Then in 2008, 2010, at that time, we started to have wireless joysticks. Wireless joysticks were based on the wireless technology that has evolved by then, where you need not have a wire. Instead, that wireless joystick had a range from the device that it is connected to. It was connected through Bluetooth or some other wireless technology that organization used, and that there was a particular range until where the joystick would be connected to the device. So it was much more convenient for us when we had the wireless joysticks. You can sit at any place in your room where you have the range, and you can play whatever you want. Okay. And then we have electronic pen. Most of you might have understood, or you might be knowing about what an electronic pen is. If you don't know, you can just listen, where it is a pen based point and draw device. It just looks like a pen, the normal pen, or most of us know the stylus that we have in the mobile phones these days. If you have seen the Samsung Note series, you have a stylus that is provided with the phone, and in the olden days also for Nokia phones you used to have a stylus. That stylus is similar to this electronic pen, but these pens just look like a normal pen or a marker that we use in these days. It used to be thin and tall. What that is used for is, it is used to directly point with it on the screen to select menu items or icons, or directly draw graphics on the screen. First we will see what it means, like what it is used for. It is used to point or select items that are present on the screen, and also directly draw graphics. We were talking about the lines, shapes, freehand curves, right? All that can be drawn with the help of this pen based point and draw device. Then can write with it on a special pad for direct input of written information to a system. Most of us might have used this technology, where we have some writing pads, digital writing pads. If you use the pen or the stylus that is provided, when you write on it, it takes it and it writes. And also, even we have a stylus here, I forgot to show you. This can be considered as a stylus, where we were having classes with the Microsoft whiteboard, where we are able to write with this. So, but this is not an electronic one, this is just a normal stylus. Electronic pens, I'll explain you how it is. Then how is it working? Pressure on tip of a side button is used to cause same action as the right button click of a mouse. Now when we were talking about mouses, how did that mouse help us to draw freehand curves or lines or shapes? We were clicking a button on the mouse and we are holding that button and then we are moving so that we get some line or a shape that is created. How is that getting created? We'll have there is some pressure applied when we click and hold the button on the mouse, and that pressure is helping us to draw some shapes on the screen or your interface. Okay. So the same way these pen based point and draw devices, what they do is, this point it is creating some pressure on this. Okay. See, whenever I am clicking here, you might be seeing this square, right? So whenever I am applying pressure, it's able to recognize there is some input to the computer or the screen, and it's working accordingly. If there is something, suppose if you can see, there is a option available here. So whenever I am clicking on this option here, what is happening? There is some functionality for this option, right? So when I am clicking and pressing or holding this, it's able to operate or perform that particular function over here. But whereas here we don't have any other feature or any function available. So whenever I am pressing here, there is nothing happening, only it's just selecting that range, and its scope is this square box. If you are able to see that square box here, that transparent square box, initially when I am just clicking it has a small circle. That means for that pressure, that is the scope of this stylus, and then when I am pressing and holding it for a while, you are able to see a square. So this will be the range or the scope for this pen. The same way, the pointing devices, these pointing devices, okay, I don't have the image right now, but they were just looking like this pen, but they had a laser over here. Okay, there was a laser technology that is embedded into this pen, and it has some electronic circuit inside this pen. Now what is happening? You need not, just like with the stylus, you need to have a touch screen over here, right? Only if you have a touch screen, this is a touch screen, that is why you are able to operate on the screen. But these electronic pens were used previously when we didn't have the touch screen technology also. Even without touch screen technology, we were able to use the electronic pen. How is it possible? They had a laser beam technology embedded into this pen, electronic pen. Let's assume this is the electronic pen. Now what happened was, when that laser beam was pointed towards the screen, wherever the screen is, this device, which is there is an electronic circuit inside this electronic pen, right? That circuit used to communicate with the computer hardware. How is it communicating with the hardware? Whenever a laser beam is falling, suppose I'll show you, if you are able to see this option here, or suppose this is, okay, I'll show this only. You have three dots here, right? You are able to see these three dots here. Now with the electronic pen, you need not directly click on the screen. That is not required actually. When you have this option here, this laser beam, if it is pointed onto this point, onto this option, it used to understand the computer screen and the circuit inside this electronic pen. They can communicate with each other, and wherever the laser point is pointing on the screen, the computer used to identify that part, because there is some light change happening or brightness change happening on your screen. Whenever there is a place on the screen, only a particular point, suppose this is used as a folder, let's assume this is a folder. Now what is happening? When I am pointing this laser point on this folder, let's assume this is a folder, I need not touch on the screen also. When this laser point is directly focusing on this used folder, there is the whole screen brightness is one thing, and whenever this laser is pointing this used folder, this brightness over here, it's changing. There is a change in the brightness at this particular point when it's compared to the whole other screen. So you do not have touch screen technology also over there. Just with the change in brightness, the computer used to understand there is something that is focusing over there, and based on the clicking operation that we do with this pen, the computer used to identify which point in the whole screen it has to select and make its operations. That is how the electronic pens used to work. Later, when we had so much technology evolution happening and we have this big screen, touch screens nowadays, and this need not be an electric pen also. Just with your finger, any device or whatever it is, they are able to do the thing for us. Even if you take any device or whatever it is, even with wire or even with your hand, whatever it is, you are able to operate the screen. But those days you need to have a electronic pen, because electronic pens were not the ordinary pens. They had that laser beam technology, which was changing the brightness at that particular point where we were focusing. Based on the focus that was happening at that point, the computer used to understand the whole screen had one kind of brightness, and at that particular point there is a change in the brightness. Based on that calculation, the computer used to identify which part to select, and based on the clicking that we do with the pen, it used to do the respective operation. So that is about electronic pens. This is something different and new, that's why I was trying to explain a little about it. Next, we have touch screens. Touch screens, we all know about it, it's very common these days. Most simple, intuitive and easiest to learn of all the input devices, we all know that. Enables users to choose from available options by simply touching with their fingers the desired icon or menu item displayed on the touch screen, on the screen. Okay. Then most preferred human computer interface used in information kiosks, unattended interactive information systems such as automated teller machines or ATMs. Initially we used to only find these touch screens in the ATMs where we had those screens and we used to just click on the screen to make our operations performed by the ATM. But after that we had the technology evolving, and now in this class itself we are able to see how we are able to operate the screens just by the fingers. Okay. Next let's see what is a data scanning device. Input device that enable direct data entry into a computer system from source documents. Now for a while, let's see what are scanning devices. All of you might have definitely once in your lifetime until now, you must have went to a internet center or a Xerox shop, right? Over there you must have definitely scanned some documents in order to make that hard copy into soft copy. So what is happening there? You have a machine or a device over there which is used to scan the document that is on a paper or a hard copy that you have into the computer form. It is just scanning that scanning device, it's copying all the data that is present on your sheet into digital form. Now that is what we call data scanning devices. What is it scanning? It's only scanning data. You cannot scan anything else with those devices, right? So whatever it is, whatever input you are giving, that is data to the scanning device. So these data scanning devices, what are they? Input device that enable direct data entry into a computer system from source documents, directly from the document. You are nowhere typing on the keyboard, or you are nowhere sending it through any other way, but directly from the hard copy of the document you have in your hand, you are just putting that thing into your machine, and that machine is taking care of all the scanning process and it's converting it into your soft copy on the computer. Now eliminate the need of key in text data into the computer. What does it mean? Eliminate the need to key in text data means you have to understand this terminology here, key in text data. That's what I was explaining in the previous point. Suppose if I have a hard copy or just a paper document, okay. Suppose this is the image or that I have to copy it into the computer. The same image I wanted into the computer. Suppose you are able to see this thing, right? Now what is happening? If I want the same image to be copied into the computer, either I have to design it with the same colors, same fonts, everything. Otherwise, if I only at least want this part, this Frontech multimedia headphone and whatever is written over here and these company names, if I only wanted this also, what should I do? I cannot I don't have any other way, only I have to type in Frontech multimedia headphone from the keyboard. If I give the input from the keyboard, only then I can save these names in my computer. But with the help of these scanning devices, what are we able to do now? I'll just put this thing onto the scanner, I'll just place it like this, and the computer or the scanning device, it's able to scan whatever range it is able to scan, like whatever range it has for scanning, all that range, whatever data is available in that range, it will be scanning. So it will be scanning from here till here. It will scan in such a way that you need not even bother about, or you need not again try to redesign this the background of this text, because every pixel or every dot of this data that we are trying to scan is being copied into the computer by the scanning machine. So that is how these scanning machines help us. They are reducing a lot of work for us, and it's helping us to scan the documents directly into the computer system. Okay. Next, due to reduced human efforts in data entry, they improve data accuracy and also increase the timeliness of the information processed. It's the advantage that they are talking about for data scanning devices. What does it mean? Due to reduced human effort in data entry. Generally, I was telling you right about that headphone thing. If you had to manually enter it, definitely there might be some or the other error at one or the other place. If it is only single box that I have to scan or that I have to enter direct manually into the keyboard, then what will happen? I might not make mistakes. But just imagine if I have like 100 or 200 boxes that I have to manually enter each and every of box manually through the keyboard. Then at some or the other point, or due to some or the other disturbance, there might be chances that I may make some small mistakes in the spelling, or I may make some, or I may skip some words from this document that I am trying to enter into the keyboard. So what happens in such places? There might be chances of making some mistakes, and the chances of high accuracy is missing over there. So that is why, as we are directly scanning the document into the computer, what is happening? It is reducing the human effort in data entry. What are we entering? We are only entering the data, right? Whatever name or image that you are trying to put into the computer manually, that is all data. So we are, by reducing the human effort in data entry, they are improving data accuracy. There are very less chances of making mistakes, and the computer doesn't make mistakes. Maybe sometimes when we don't place that image or the document properly onto the scanning machine, it might miss out something, but whatever it's scanning, it always scans it properly, and it has very high accuracy, and it also increases the timeliness of the information processed. If you have to manually enter the text that I've shown you just now, it will take like around maybe 2 to 3 minutes, or it all depends upon the speed of that person who is entering it manually. But with the help of scanners, it is increasing the timeliness of the information processed. That means it is processing the information very quickly. If it is manual effort, then the human might take 2 to 3 minutes, but the same text that needs to be entered into the computer, the scanner will take around 2 to 3 seconds. It all depends upon whatever data you are scanning, how much data you are scanning, and the scanners are that fast and they are so much accurate. So you have to understand why we are switching towards machines and why we are switching towards automated things. The main reason for any kind of an automation is to reduce the human efforts and improve data accuracy. Wherever you see, whatever technology that we are trying to automate from the manual to the automated task, everywhere this point would be definitely like required, or based on this point there are so many automations that are happening these days. Okay. Next, we are continuing the same data scanning devices. Demand high quality of input documents. Now I showed you this thing, right? When I was trying to scan this box or the front side of this box, what may I do? I may not get the background text, as I was telling you before. I may not get these colors, the same color. I may not get this logo over here. What I can do at max, I may only just type them, or I may try to clone Similar to this, if I have some very good graphic designing techniques, or if I am very good graphic designer, then I may try to get something near to this, but not exactly what it is, and very much accurately I may not get it. And the quality may also miss over there. It all depends upon what softwares we are using and what kind of technology we are using. So if you are just scanning that box, front part of the box, it will give you the exact output, whatever is there in your input whenever you are scanning the device, whatever is the input quality, the same output quality or even more better quality you can expect, because in some documents when we are trying to scan, we try to adjust the resolution and quality of the document. So when we are adjusting that, the computer or the scanner, it processes the document and it might try to give you a better quality than the input also, but in the manual entry of documents, that might not be possible for us. So demand high quality of input documents. The scanners help us in this. And then some data scanning devices are also capable of recognizing marks or characters. We'll see about this in the next input and output devices, where I would like to show you about how these devices are able to capture or able to understand different kinds of characters, or how they are able to recognize the text. We'll see about it, but these some data scanning devices are also capable of recognizing marks and characteristics. Just try to remember this. In the next slides, you'll understand what this means. Okay. Then the form design and ink specification usually becomes more critical for accuracy. Okay. Form design and ink specification means, now we were talking about the quality and the output accuracy, right? In order to get a better quality or better accuracy than what is given in the input, then what you should have a very high quality scanner, and the ink that you are using inside the scanner, or the ink that is being used, that should be of very much high quality. Only then it will be able to provide you much more better documents and accurate documents. If the technology or the software, the technology that you are using inside that scanning machine, if it isn't that good, if it is not able to provide you better accuracy or better scanning output, then it will become really difficult for getting the exact output that is given by the input. And then we have something called image scanner. What do you mean by image scanner? Input device that translates paper documents into an electronic format for storage in a computer. Now all this comes under your data scanning device. Okay. Whenever you are trying to scan a document or anything, when you scan it and when you see the soft copy in your computer, what is the format that you generally get it in? You will get that format, you will get that output in the form of an image. Why is it so? Because whatever document or whatever data that you are trying to scan, it is read by that scanner, and it's converting it into an image format, where you are getting the output in the form of an image. Now electronic format of a scanned image is a bitmap representation. Stored image can be altered or manipulated with an image processing software. Fine. Now this electronic format of scanned image is its bitmap representation. Why is it so? Now if you are manually, I am again getting this box for you. If you are manually entering whatever text is there, how will you enter? You will only enter the characters, right? But when the scanner is trying to get an image into the computer, how will it scan all this? Will it only able to identify what is this, what is the text available here, or how is it doing that? Computers always identify things based on pixels. What do you mean by pixel is? Pixels are generally measured by dots per inch. Okay, DPI, you call them DPI. What do you mean by DPI? Dots per inch. The computer generally calculates whatever, or it tries to analyze the data that we try to scan, or that it has on the computer, based on pixels. Each and every dot, every minute dot that is present on the front side of this box, if it is scanned, it will try to analyze each and every small dot that is available here. Now when it is trying to scan each and every dot here, it will come until here. Now it has a gap over here, so it doesn't directly take the whole thing as a blue thing or something like that, but when it had some different pixels over here available, then it will try to change it and it will try to identify that pixel and make sure it will replicate the same pixel that is available here. Here you don't have any pixel available because this is all gap, right? There is some gap in between over here for us. Now what it does, when the image is scanned like this, whatever is, and you will be closing it with a lid. That lid has some pixels, right? When it's closed like this, when light passes through this over here, there is a lid or something that is closing this box. So that also has some pixels. It will consider that part as the pixels and it will scan that part also, because over here you have gap. So there are no pixels available at this point. But behind this, for the lid, there are some pixels, right? That will be scanned by the scanner. So everything is measured in pixels, and you have to understand that these pixels are measured in dots per inch, DPI. Okay. So why was I telling you that? Because it is mentioned bitmap representation. I wanted you to understand this term, very important, because it's the electronic format of scanned image is its bitmap representation. These pixels, every small pixel, that every minute pixel that is available when it's scanning, those pixels are actually stored in the form of bits. We didn't still get into the memory part, that's why I am not able to tell you, or you might not be able to understand bits, but you can compare your bits as the smallest memory unit into which you can store any data. The minutest point inside your data or the storage is in bit form. Okay, so these pixels are the minutest thing on your image. These minutest things are stored in this bitmap representation. Okay, that's why it's stored in bits. These pixels are, each pixel is stored in bits, and these bits are then a group of bits, or 8 bits is equal to 1 byte, right? So these 8 bits of pixels are then stored into 1 byte. So that way we have generally images in how many, in bytes, right? Kilobytes, megabytes, or it all depends upon the quality and all. So if it is very compressed or a very small image, it will be only in 1 KB, 2 KB, 3 KB, or it will be 10 KB, like that. When you are applying for some exams or anything, they won't allow you to have that image more than 50 KB, 60 KB, right? Why is it so? Because whenever the software that the examination people they are providing, that software tries to scan that image that you have sent, and it is in pixels. It will scan each and every pixel, and it will try to store those pixels into bitmap representation. These bitmaps are again converted into bytes, and that byte value is compared with whatever is your output or whatever that you have uploaded as a file. So we'll see all that. That is not complicated or anything, it's very simple. But as of now, just understand, whenever you are scanning your image or document, it will consider each and every pixel in that document that you are scanning, and it will store it as a bitmap representation. Okay, and the stored image can be altered or manipulated with an image processing software. Image processing software is nothing but images. Whenever you are storing some images, there are some specialized softwares that help you to understand the image and to retrieve data from the image, or they help you to convert that image to a text. If you people want to try, just go to the Play Store and try to install Google Lens. Google Lens is a image processing software, you can call it, just a basic one, where if you just click a picture of a text and you just try to upload it on that Google Lens application or app, it will convert whatever image, whatever data is there on the image, it will convert it into text form for you. So what is it doing? That is the image that you uploaded to Google Lens, but Google Lens is trying to find out the data that is present in the image. So there is an image processing software running behind in the application, which is helping you to identify the text and convert it into digital text form. Okay, so so that is all about image scanning. In the next class, we'll start with operating systems. That will be a very interesting session. So that's all for this session. Thank you.